The medical treatment throughout the Civil War was rudimentary at best, but over time became state-of-the-art and provided the groundwork for modern medicine today. Soldiers experienced extreme dehydration and became excruciatingly thin as a result. At this time, not much was known about dysentery, and no medicine was in production. So many soldiers perished. Food was also scarce in many prisons, which malnourished many soldiers and led to an increased spread of many diseases. Throughout the Civil War, soldiers suffered through many horrible diseases. These included dysentery, syphilis, rheumatism, pneumonia, and gonorrhea. Infections spread through the cramped state of hospital and dirtiness of the tools used by doctors. According to a medical journal that recorded the amount of disease-related casualties in the Union Army, roughly 1.7 million Union soldiers were infected, and almost 500,000 soldiers died in the year 1862 alone. Doctors, without a good understanding of what caused the diseases, frequently left their tools unwashed and did not clean med sheets of sick soldiers. This led to many people becoming infected as a result of merely entering a hospital. Your command is worse off in the matter of sick men than when you left. There are 40 men in the hospital, and the number would be greater if there were room. The number of sick men in camp and private houses is hardly to be believed. But I think I am in bounds to say when I say that if 250 men rank and file are able to march now, 'tis more than I expect. William Stewart, reporting on to his officer the condition of the men.
Dr. Mead at last.
Thank heaven you're here. I need every pair of hands. Now, come, child, wake up. We got work to do.
But Mellie's having a baby. You've got to come with me.
Are you crazy? I can't leave these men for a baby. They're dying, hundreds of them. Get some woman to help you.
But there isn't anybody, and, well, Dr. Mead, she might die.
Die? Look at them, bleeding to death in front of my eyes. No chloroform, no bandages, nothing. Nothing to even ease their pain. Now run along and don't bother me. Oh, don't worry, child. There's nothing to bringing a baby. I'll bring the stretchers in here.
Dr. Mead?
Yeah, I'm coming.
The bone saw, a very recognizable and famous surgical instrument, was used throughout the Civil War in surgical tents. This tool, and many others, were used to cut the limbs of wounded soldiers throughout the Civil War. Typically, an amputation lasted 12 minutes, depending on what was being cut off. While being amputated, the soldiers were required to bite in a stick for comfort. This kept them from shattering their teeth from the pain. Anesthesia was not available until the end of the war. So many soldiers were fully aware of their surgery. Surgeons usually brought the patient into the tent, then proceeded to wrap a bandage above the wound. This lessened the blood flow from the amputation. Then, using the required tool, the surgeon began sawing off the infected or wounded limb. Many soldiers died from the blood loss during this process. Even the sidewalks of the streets are full of wounded, and there is great scarcity of surgeons, and no place for their accommodations. There are now 6,000 wounded here. Clayton Coleman, providing a description of the aftermath of the Battle of Antietam. So many soldiers had amputations done during the Civil War. The surgeons worked on what called an assembly line and created piles of limbs under the table. Upon arrival, the visitor was greeted by a gruesome sight: a heap of amputated legs, feet, arms, and hands, a full load for a one-horse cart. Walt Whitman, upon arriving to a hospital to visit his brother who had recently been injured. January 5th, 1864. Today, after dinner, Levi Brown had his left leg amputated 5 inches below the knee. I was present at the operation, most of the time in the door. I remained all night, slept on the adjoining cot, the same one next night. Walt Whitman, describing how he stayed with his friend through a leg amputation that was a result of an infection. Looking for many eminence and studying the topography in my rambles, I used the hospitals as landmarks. That little town, as you might suppose it, off there in the brow of the hill, is indeed a town, but of wounds, sickness, and death. It is Finley Hospital, northeast of the city, on Kendall Green, as it used to be called. That other is Camp Bell Hospital. Both are large establishments. I have known these two alone to have from 2,000 to 2,500 inmates. Then there is Carver Hospital, larger still, a walled military city regularly laid out, and guarded by squads of sentries. Again, off east, Lincoln Hospital, a still larger one, and half a mile further, Emory Hospital. Even all these are but a portion. The Harewood, Mount Pleasant, Armory Square, Judiciary Hospitals are some of the rest, and all of them large collection. Walt Whitman, describing the massive size of the hospitals he saw, as well as large amounts of hospitals within a small amount of space. The result of many wounds and diseases were men missing 1, 2, and sometimes even 3 limbs. The folded sleeve became a trademark of Civil War veterans. Hammond, the Surgeon General throughout the Civil War, revolutionized wartime medicine near the end of the Civil War. Due to large amounts of wounded flooding local hospitals, Hammond founded the U.S. Medical Corps, a branch of the military that trained surgeons to operate in the battle. He also improved the conditions of the many hospitals. I devote myself much to Armory Square Hospital because it contains by far the worst cases, most repulsive wounds, has the most suffering, and most need of consolidation. I go every day without fail, and often at night, sometimes stay very late. No one interferes with me, guards, doctors, nurses, nor anyone. I am let to take my own course. Walt Whitman describing this dire state of many parts of the hospital, and how he volunteered as a part-time consolidator. All are well with the exception of the wounded. It is feared Captain Wooding's wound would prove mortal, but later accounts from him report him to be improving. He still lies near Fredericksburg. David Henkel, reporting on hospital life in the Union Army. You folk were all well when last heard from. I suppose you have heard all about Mr. Strayer's death here now. His neighborhood has not very much sickness now. David Henkel, reporting on how effective the fight against disease was in the town he was currently stationed at. The most famous of nurses is a woman by the name of Clara Barton. She was well known as the Angel of the Battlefield. Clara Barton also founded the Red Cross, an organization which provides medical care to hundreds of thousands of people today. She also organized the nurses into specific roles which include attending to the wounded, helping amputees, and battlefield rescue. Medicine was also developed in full by the end of the Civil War. Treatments for dysentery, syphilis, and pneumonia were in full demand. Pharmacies were hard-pressed to deliver, but due to a larger manufacturing industry in the North, they were able to complete their orders. Surgical treatments for amputation were also improved as a result of trial and error done by thousands of new surgeons during the Civil War. These included better places to cut, as well as placement of the body during the amputation. Plastic surgery became a prevalent field of research due to large amounts of disfigured veterans who wanted to return to their normal state. This also led the field in the direction of prosthetic limb development. The prosthetic limb industry was completely revolutionized by the time of the end of the Civil War. Better and more limbs were produced than ever before. Due to millions of soldiers in need of new arms and legs, prosthetics were in heavy demand. Manufacturing prosthetic limbs became a very large and lucrative business. It resulted in millions of veterans being able to continue working, even without arms and legs. These legs and arms were created by hand in large factories in the North. States such as Alabama, North Carolina, and Louisiana received millions of dollars worth of prosthetic limbs for their wounded veterans and paid for the extra limbs that were required. A large part of Civil War veterans' lives after the war was used in rehabilitation, getting used to using their prosthetic limbs. Veterans that were helped were mostly located in the North due to North's industrial strength, but many were shipped south during Reconstruction. The prosthetics developed during the Civil War era saved millions of livelihoods after the war, and provided the groundwork for prosthetics today.